the hardest thing for a manager to do is to implement their own style while having the pressure of winning games. Like, if there was no pressure to win games, anyone could come in, implement their style, not really be worried about the end result. But when there is a worry around the end result, the implementation of their own style is tough. Was that Emery's problem? That the pressure of winning the game, is that away from Arteta, or does Arteta? Well, Karen.
I definitely do not think so. Emery came in when, again, Arsenal were flopping at a lot of for a lot of elements. They weren't really doing anything in Europe, and they were still bouncing around third, fourth, fifth in the league as well. And they hadn't. What did Wenger win his last FA Cup? I want to say no, he didn't. Did he?
I'm not sure.
He won 2 out of maybe his last 4 years. He won a couple, didn't he?
Yeah, but I don't believe he won his very last one. I think it was the one before that he won. So Emery came in without any of that pressure, with just a case of come in, build the squad, try and maintain the position that we are, and from there let's work on improvement for the following season. But then he came in, and in fact, to be fair, like I say, he came in and he did all right initially, and he did all right, and then again, all the issues, whatever issues there were, arose, and then that's when it was like, yeah, look, this guy's not going to do anything. So I think something that's been lucky is obviously Arteta's come in, and I think there's been a similar level of, look, you know, here's your grace period, and you know, do what you need to do. But I think something that's been fortunate for Arsenal, at least, in regards to Arteta, is actually having the lockdown happen, because it's meant that whatever happens after lockdown, you've got the end of the season, play the games, do what you need to do. Like you're saying, Ali, a bit of a pre-season for them. And then they're going to have pre-season, then they're going to come into you know, the next season. So I feel it's given him that extra time to actually figure out what he wants to do. You could see him experimenting a little bit when he first came in as well, rotating players around, seeing which players are fitting where and whatnot. And I think now he's starting to get an idea of what he wants to do. And
as a fan, have you written off this season, or is there an expectation that if fifth position goes to Europe, we want to be in that position?
I would love. I'm not written off the season whatsoever, especially, again, like I say, especially with how the team's been performing over the last 6 or 7 matches. They've been either drawing or winning. Well, they've mostly been drawing or winning, and that has been, you know, that has really been a sign that there's possibility that we could still get into Europe.
Do you know what? Even as a manager, he's not scared to make decisions. I was reading today about Gunduzi. Is that how you pronounce his name?
Get him out. He doesn't want to be there. Get him out.
He's been told to train by himself because of an incident a month ago.
Yeah.
What was? I don't know if that incident against Brighton or something.
It was. I can't quite remember, but I think it was just talking back to Arteta during training. I want to say, is that what it was? Yeah, something along those lines. Anyway, but the guy's got no interest in being at Arsenal just now. Get him out. Get him out.
If you're brave enough to tell a player that, right, you're training by yourself, it sends a strong enough message to other players.
Yeah.
It's something I think that I like about Arteta, in that you can see that he knows what the club should be trying to do. I think there's something in, and maybe it helps that he was skipper under Wenger, wasn't he?
Yes, he was.
Yes, he was a captain under a manager that literally modern Arsenal is built on. I mean, I've said before a few times on here, you know, obviously I'm a big Man United supporter, but I always say that Wenger is maybe perhaps the biggest influence on the modern game in this country right now, for the way the game has gone, or what his Arsenal teams did. I think Arteta is an exponent of that, but then he's had his coaching, his training for that, if you will, under Pep Guardiola, who
that's it.
And he's probably the ultimate of that type of coaching style of play as well, the super technical game. He's had a lot of good grounding there that should really allow him to look at recreating what Arsenal had under Wenger. He should have that.
He went from, yeah, you're right though. He went from, when I say successful, I mean successful for Arsenal at that time. He went from a successful Arsenal team to a winning Man City team, and coming back to Arsenal after after such a positive run can only be really big for his sort of confidence to actually come in and think, actually, I've seen how a winning club does it. I've seen what kind of changes I can make here, and I've seen what a winning manager does as well, from both kind of Wenger and Pep, and then coming through, merging these ideas and implementing into Arsenal. I can see it happening. I can see him being successful.
Wham, sorry, go on, Ali.
I was just going to say that, were you happy when he was announced, especially when Ancelotti was being spoken about as well?
I knew you were going to bring up Ancelotti. Ali's a known Ancelotti fan.
The thing is, I want someone in the club that is going to love the club. And regardless of the money or whatever it is that's going on, the passion, the love, everything that this guy has, that's gonna feed off to all the players. That's gonna feed off to the backroom staff. It's gonna feed off to everybody. And I feel that everybody will get around that. And that's how it's like when what's his name? What was the Leicester winning manager team? I kind of not remember. There we go. When he comes in and he's got his philosophy, whatever, but everybody just gets around that idea, right? And it's that he's building a team. You know what I mean? He's not just coming in. He's not just this flashy name, a flashy manager. He's building a team, and I think that's what wins. That's what can win anyway.
So
I think as well with a lot of sort of younger managers that have been players at clubs in the past, they'll already have that level of respect for what they've done at the club in the past. They'll already know the vast majority of the backroom team that are there as well. They'll have relationships built with them, and they'll
have the fan support as well.
Yeah, exactly. The fans will automatically give them that a little bit longer.
Yeah.
Whereas with the likes of Unai Emery coming in, doesn't really speak the language, doesn't really know anybody at the club. All right, the fans might like him because he did all right at Sevilla in the Europa League. But if they're not getting results quickly, it's a lot easier to turn on somebody that doesn't really have a connection with the club than somebody like an Arteta or a Solskjaer or a Lampard that have built that sort of respect within the fan base and within the club.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of it comes down to what the club needs at that time as well, because there is a time when a club needs fresh ideas and fresh impetus from somebody from the outside that's going to come in and go, this could be bigger. I mean, I think we've seen right now a really good example of the opposite of that with somebody like Lampard at Chelsea that's actually giving a bit of continuity. But Chelsea's biggest success period came in from bringing in Mourinho, who at that point brought this modern Chelsea way forward. I think it depends. I think, for example, when I look at it with my club, we've just been watching this with Solskjaer, which is obviously a big example of this. I think when Ferguson left, United probably could have done with someone who's a massive personality and established, who could have taken that on and been able to, like a safe pair of hands, to be able to deal with the pressure. United actually didn't try and do that first. We tried to do this method, and we just picked the wrong guy, I think, in David Moyes. It was never sort of set up for success, and he just couldn't handle it. If Ollie, for example, had come in there, or it had been Giggs, there was a lot of talk of Ryan Giggs at the time as well, somebody like this, it would have been a great idea, but it would have been hard then to see if it could. I think the idea was right. They just picked the wrong guy. And they tried to go for longevity.
At that time, when you have digested, obviously hindsight's 20/20 vision. At that time, Fergie leaves. You hire a Giggs or a Solskjaer. Would you, as a fan, have digested that? Okay, this guy's going to take maybe 3 years to win the league.
I think we did under Moyes. I think that was literally the pitch. I remember Ferguson right at the end going, stick with him. And I think the mentality was to go, do you know what? As long as he's staying true to the ethos of the club, in certain, and that, you know, for Man United, that really depends on playing attacking football, playing the youth. And as long as that's happening, you could accept the league position variance and you could accept the building blocks. The issue with Moyes is then that he didn't do any of that either, and it didn't help himself when he got rid of the backroom staff that he probably should have kept. Yeah, that was a big mistake. And as soon as he did that, he probably the writing was on the wall from there for him, to be honest. But then United, even Van Gaal, there was an attempt to still play youth. I don't think the style of football was right, but Van Gaal was trying to ingratiate himself. And then Mourinho happens as a response to Pep. It was a panic. See, you've got Pep, let's get Mourinho. Do you know what I mean? And then that happened. And to be honest, when Solskjaer's come in, yes, then we did need it. We needed a reset because we had the right plan with Moyes, we just had the wrong guy. And now the question is, can Solskjaer be the right guy? Because we needed someone who, for example, Mourinho really lost us when he turned round. I mentioned this last time on the Mourinho special. When he turned round after we got knocked out by Sevilla in the Champions Leagues, and he turned around and said, well, I beat them at this stage as well. And as soon as you say, I beat them, and them being the club you're in charge of now, you need to leave, Sunshine. You're nothing to do with this club. You're just literally, you've thrown your own club under the bus. You're not one of us. You need to go. The thing with Ollie...
Who would you have selected when Ferguson
when Ferguson went? I mean, again, hindsight's a beautiful thing. I mean, I think at that point, I think the way that Giggs handled himself in that interim period, I've been like, why not let Giggs have a chance rather than David Moyes? Because David Moyes, okay, he'd done a good job at Everton, but the brief is entirely different. So I'd be like, why not then? If you're going to do that, if you're going to pick this person and try and build your manager for, because let's be honest, if you get it right, Ali, you've got the manager for the next 20 years.
Exactly.
Because you bring in Mourinho, he does well, and then he uses that to leverage another job.
Exactly.
He's not going to do that. Do you know what I mean? So you're looking at going, okay, yeah, there's reasons why it might not work, but what if it does? This guy is part of the fabric of the team. So I think Giggs would have been a great shout. But at the same point, I'm saying that it's not easy to determine because United maybe needed somebody like, say, for example, an Ancelotti or somebody to steady the ship and groom somebody through. They tried that with Van Gaal and Giggs, right? That's actually what they were doing. Van Gaal took over, Giggs became his assistant, and they actually tried to go, it didn't work with Moyes. We need someone to steady the ship, but we still want to bring Giggs through. And then all of a sudden, we just threw the toys out the pram when Pep went to City, panicked, and brought in the everything we were talking about by bringing in Jose Mourinho. And he just absolutely just killed what we were trying to do. And I think Ollie is an attempt to go, we had the right intention, we effed up again, let's go back to what we actually tried to set out to do. Exactly. I've said about Ollie all along, I don't know if Ollie is the guy that will return Premier League titles to Manchester United, but I feel like he's taken us back to that direction.
That's exactly it.
Convert, I'm not 100% sure, but I tell you what, the first thing he did when he came in, Fellaini, out. The other two managers kept him. He came in and went, that's not a Manchester United midfield player, out. And then Sanchez, the fraud that Arsenal sent us, I think it's his twin brother or something, out. Yes. Lukaku. Again, over would have gone, but Lukaku scoring goals. Yeah, but Solskjaer knows the club. Solskjaer was a great centre-forward for United. He knows what a great United centre-forward looks like. And Lukaku's a fraud in that department because he's got a first touch like a truck. Out. Do you know what I mean? He's looked at Martial and Rashford and gone, I can work with you guys. And he knows Mason's coming through. And he's gone, these guys here, I will build you one because I can see the raw materials. But this Lukaku guy, he's not going to win your league. He's just not. He's just not, even though he will technically, statistically score goals. That's not what a Manchester United forward looks like.
He's an individual, and he's not really part of the team. You can't. I didn't feel you could build a team around Lukaku.
Every United team that's won trophies has not had a striker like that. It's had a striker that contributes to everything else. And United have always shared team goals around the teams that have won leagues, and that Lukaku was never going to be that guy. Solskjaer intrinsically knows this because he was also a coach at United as well. He's also managed the younger teams coming through. He's coached some of these players. You can't buy the knowledge of the club like that. You can't buy it. Do you know what I mean? So I get, for example, Liverpool, Klopp was probably the personality that Liverpool needed at that time. So you can't then say you don't have to have come from inside the club. We're not saying everyone should now do what Chelsea, United and Arsenal are doing. But United, Chelsea and Arsenal absolutely should be doing that.
Yes.
That's what I absolutely
agree.
Yeah.
Do you not think Ollie was going down the same path as Unai after initial period, very good. Like, the run of games was pretty easy, if I'm honest. They had 1 or 2 tough games in that, but he won those tough games as well. So initial period, very good. Then he went down. At Christmas, people were talking about, right, he's got to go. So he went down the same path as Unai Emery, but he's come out the other end. A lot of people say because of one player, like catalyst, that's sparked it. Other people might be like, actually, no, there's players coming through. Mason Greenwood coming through, McTominay, all these players are coming through.
Yeah.
He's spent 130 million on his defence, still leaking goals. Like, was he going down that path, but time saved him, that the fans gave him, the club gave him?
Okay.
Or was it a player?
Let me get clinical with this, because this is how it went down. So first of all, there was the interim run. The interim run is a little bit of a tricky one to judge because that club was infighting and toxic when Mourinho went. It was one of Mourinho's highlight meltdowns, one of his best ones yet. Like, it was epic. And when he went, the club was just like, we need someone to come through who's going to manage the players, going to make them feel good and make them want to play. Solskjaer came in and did that. And what Solskjaer did was really clever as well, is that he actually realised he's got good players there that were being used wrong. First thing he did was put Pogba back in, because how the fuck are you going to play Pogba in that squad? So Pogba, and he was like, right, what else have I got here? Because Mourinho was using 3 players at that point in midfield predominantly. Check this out. Fellaini, Matic, McTominay. Is that a balanced midfield? No. And it made all 3 of them look worse than they were. So he realised and went, Matic is a great number 6, but not when he's no creativity in the midfield with him. So he took Fellaini got sent on a plane did he go to Turkey or somewhere? And he was out anyway. And then he looked at it and went, right, I've got Ander Herrera there, who's a great number 8, who's box to box. Let me bring Ander Herrera back in, who for some reason was out of favour. And then, do you know what? I'm just going to push Pogba forward and let him play as a number 10 in this situation, free him up completely. Pogba had the highest goals and assist stats in Europe during that period. He was killing it. Matic was solid as a number 6, and Ander Herrera, box to box, was doing what Ander Herrera does. And suddenly, United went on a run because players were playing where they wanted to play. They felt positive. And he didn't do anything majorly impressive tactically. He just put the players where they should be and made them feel good. Then he got the job. That wasn't really part of the plan. And then I think where he really, really struggled is that Matic really suddenly looked battered in midfield. He'd been playing. Mourinho had played him every single game he could. And I think Matic really started to struggle. Ander Herrera's contract situation was up. And that wasn't obviously doing him any favours. And Pogba was back to being, other teams had realised, just man-mark Pogba. Just put 2 on Pogba. No one else is going to hurt you in this team. You kill Pogba, you kill United's attack. And then Pogba gets injured, and he starts the season playing Jesse Lingard as his number 10, because he's not got a number 10. He's trying to play a 4-2-3-1, but he's got Lingard and Pereira, and he knows he's not got an attacking force in the team. He's shipped out Lukaku. Now, people at that point were saying you're wrong to do that because you've lost your goals. But he was like, to take 2 steps backwards rather than put up with his stopgap, which was Lukaku. So I'm still going to lose Lukaku, and I'm going to take some short-term pain for some long-term gain on this. And he was like, I'm going to back Martial. I'm going to give him his number 9 T-shirt back that Mourinho ripped off him and punted him out to the left the second he came in. I'm going to go, do you know what? Martial, I can work with you, and I'm going to give you my confidence. Even though the fact that you're going to play without a midfield behind you that can supply you, you and Rashford are going to get really tight and you're going to learn to live with each other. And the connection that Martial and Rashford have now is really become something special.
Amazing.
I wouldn't have allowed that to happen. In fact, Mourinho was playing one, usually subbing the other, and generally he's not playing them both. He's gone, nah, I'm going to work with these guys. And then he's adamant that he's gone to that board and gone, I'm sorry, you need to get me this number 10. And he's picked Bruno Fernandes, and what a decision it's made. And then Pogba's come back and everyone's like, oh, Solskjaer suddenly turned on. Yeah, he's got options to pick again. Do you know what I mean? That's been the big difference. So do I think Solskjaer is experienced enough to be able to dig out results when he's not got the players he needs? Well, he's learning on the job. So that's a hard thing to ask a manager that's not had to do that, that's not had to do it without the level of players. Do you know what I mean? It's a difficult thing to do. He's not got a director of football, which I've referenced before as being, I still think is a major issue that needs to be solved. And the coaching staff is quite young, predominantly and experience-wise. There's only really Phelan that's got experience there, and he's never been my favourite out the United coaches anyway, to be honest. If Carlos Queiroz or somebody, I'd think that might be different. But the point is then, what Solskjaer's done is he's recognised that he might lose his job trying to do this. But he's like, I'm going to reset the button here and I'm going to lay the foundations again. Does not knowing if he'll be the guy that gets to kick it on, if that might get past to somebody else. But Solskjaer's been prepared to do a selfless job, because the amount of criticism he's took, if he was Mourinho, he would have kept Lukaku, because he's been like, well, I'm not losing my job getting rid of him. He would have kept him, because Lukaku does score goals. He'd score enough goals to keep you in the top 4.
Yeah.
Solskjaer has understood what the club needs and is prepared to put himself on the line to do it. He's been selfless with it, but it's not like he's not wanting to keep the job. Of course he does, but he understands what's acceptable for Manchester United. So yes, the football has improved massively, but the reason why Solskjaer had to play in the counter-attack and became good at that is because he's understood that he's not got the level of player he needs to play the way he really wants to play. The second he's now sat there with a Pogba and a Bruno Fernandes, brought it through Mason Greenwood, who, let's be honest, if Mourinho was still there, would be on his 5th loan by now or something. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That I give to Solskjaer, that he brought their youth through. And we could throw Frank Lampard in this as well. He had to use his youth, and it worked, right? Mm-hmm. So, again, Lampard at Chelsea, would he have had the job if they didn't have a transfer ban? Would they have given it to someone like Lampard?
Probably not.
So the point I'm making is that he got given the job. He did it with the youth. Then all of a sudden, people are like, oh, okay, maybe we can play with the youth, right? Manchester United have done it before, but they weren't doing it now.
Mm.
He's still, like, Solskjaer's first signings or first people bringing through, was it the youth? Like, they went after Maguire. Wan-Bissaka is young, but he was proven. He wasn't
Dan James.
Yeah, so the whole reason we're having this conversation is I believe that these clubs, Arsenal, Man U, Chelsea, are some of the biggest clubs in the world. And driving these clubs should be some of the biggest names. People with strong track records. Now, okay, I know it's not worked for Man U the way they wanted to, but could it have worked for Chelsea? Could it have worked for Arsenal? I know Unai Emery was a name when he came in, but Arteta, would he have taken the job if they didn't have no money? Imagine they had money. Would that job have gone to someone else?
So, Ali, one question though, as a Liverpool fan, how would you think that applies to the Liverpool boot room?
So, Liverpool had 30 years without winning a league. They had to go with someone who was a big name, and they got that person coming in. They win the league. So, regardless of what's happened in 30 years, the one thing that got them to win the league was a big name. Not a big name. I'm not talking about a Pep or a Zidane at the time who had won Champions Leagues and stuff like that. I'm talking about a guy who's done it, who's been there, earned his stripes, and is there on merit because he should be there. Frank Lampard didn't really earn his stripes. Arteta's not. So Ollie hasn't. These guys are brought in to do something that, I don't know. I don't know if the remit's too big for these guys.
So, Ali, the point I was making, so not forget the 30 years that I've gone before. I'm talking before that, when Liverpool used to win leagues in the 70s and the 80s. Gee, you can maybe break this down. What was the boot room about?
Yeah, well, I think we all know, do we not? But it started with Bill Shankly in the late 50s. And then after Bill Shankly, in whatever it was, 70 odd, they brought in Bob Paisley, who'd only ever been an assistant manager and a physio previous to that. And then he's still our most successful manager ever. He won, I think, 13 trophies in 9 years. And then after Bob Paisley, they brought in Joe Fagan, who again was, I don't think he was even an assistant manager. I think he was just a coach at the club. He won a European Cup. After Joe Fagan, sorry, no, he didn't. He got beat at the European Cup final, won the league. After Joe Fagan, Kenny Dalglish, I think, got it as player manager, having never managed before. So that's a good
That's
30
4 or
years.
5, and that's a good 4 or 5 that went on to become league champions over and over again. Now, what's the difference now? But back then to now, is you feel it's with PR or the social media age, or we need to have the big PR name? We need to have this obsession with marketing. Is it marketing over football? What is the difference now? Because that was the mentality then that a team built a dynasty off.
Yeah.
Why do we feel like we need to have a big name now?
For a long time, you didn't get too many player managers nowadays that go on and win the league. You don't get people that just come through. Pep is a recent example. If you look at Zidane, but again, Zidane gets a lot of criticism. Like, he gets a ton of criticism for the way he manages. I know they've gone back to him, but could he have done
back to back, by the way?
Yeah.
I understand Zidane European Cup, but I don't think Ollie, Frank, or Arteta are in that league. I just don't think, like, if you're playing in Spain, like I say this, I joke with Cuzzy all the time that Spain is an easy league, right? If you're playing in Spain, it's not, like, you're playing one of the hardest leagues in the world. I say the hardest league in the world, where you have got some of the best players in the world, but these clubs are the best clubs in the world. I think that Chelsea, Man U, Arsenal are some of the best clubs in the world.
What's your opinion on Simeone? He's another one that didn't have any real experience.
Again, Spain. Like, let's talk about. Like, we'll talk about Britain.
Jose Mourinho was an interpreter before he became a manager. He went straight from being Bobby Robson's interpreter to becoming. And I criticise Mourinho a lot, right? We know this, but his record is pretty strong. This was a guy who got his break because of the way he acted in the dressing room as an interpreter. So in that mentality, he never got his chance.
But when he came to the Chelsea, he'd come with his stripes. Chelsea wouldn't have taken an interpreter. They wouldn't have taken that.
But he didn't manage a small club. He managed Porto and won the Champions League with them.
His first job was Benfica.
He came after he'd won the Champions League, is what I'm trying to say. These guys have come. I don't mind these guys earning stripes. I don't mind Frank earning his stripes. I don't mind these guys. But when they came to Chelsea, a Man U, they'd earned their stripes. These guys were winners. These guys had already won cups.
Yeah, but
30 years ago, fine. But nowadays, we don't get that in Britain. We don't just, like, not at the top clubs. The reason I believe...
But is that a cultural thing that's changed through the social media age? I think that's why we don't get that.
Maybe.
What about Brendan Rodgers? He was very close to winning the league, having only ever managed Swansea and Reading previously.
But he'd done all right. He'd earned his stripes. He'd done all right. And he came to a club that wasn't really ready to win the league. Do you think we were ready to win the league then?
No, but...
That's the point he made. That's the point he made them ready to win the league.
Yeah, exactly.
Has he done much more than Frank Lampard done at Derby? I don't think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
Frank at Derby wasn't great either.
PR media.
Frank at Derby was pretty good, I thought, to be honest.
Yeah, he was all right. It was the league below, but fine. It was all right.
So was Reading and Swansea up until he got them promoted. But
I just feel like we have. I think it's. Again, remember we talked about the pressure thing the other day. I think we have put too much on what the TV, the media, the broadcasters put out as a narrative, and we buy into that too much. And I think the big clubs, they have their own narrative. And let's be honest, it's the media that need the clubs, not the clubs that need the media. There is no, that's how it works. So this when we talked about the idea, again, not to tap into it, just the point we talked about Scholes and pressure. I was like, Scholes' pressure came from the club, not what BBC had to say. Who cares what they have to say? This is the talent. Their job's to amplify, not to narrate, not to build the narrative. Theirs is to amplify the narrative. So I feel like it's a bit of a PR and a media thing to be like, oh, but we need to have this name that's going to sell tickets, and this is I think this is part of the mentality here. That
I think it's more than selling tickets. I think when you're a huge club, say you're a big club, and then you get a manager in that the players respect. That's a big thing. Like, can someone respect someone who's just been a player, hasn't really done anything as a manager? All of a sudden, the manager's like, this is the way we want to play. Unless they keep referencing, unless these managers are like, when I was a player, this is what we did. But I don't think these guys are that fickle or that kind of...
They must have watched them going... You tell me those Chelsea players haven't seen what Lampard did in there. Lampard says something to them. You can't be like, well, what would you do? You're like, well, I've done it, son. My name's...
What I'm saying is that when someone comes in as a manager, I don't think it's great management saying that when I was a player, this is what I would do. Because I think when you're playing and when you're managing, it's different. You've got to start talking like a manager. It's not just a reference to when I played, this is what I achieved, blah, 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 blah. if you're a top player, when you look up someone, you're like, this manager has won this. I can't wait to play with him because I'll win this. Not because this guy won something, then I might win something. I don't think maybe I'm not looking into it far enough, but I don't think that works.
I think with a lot of players, I don't really think they mind who the manager is.
As long as the manager plays them and they plays the way that the person wants to play.
Yeah, I mean, when players are signing for a club, I think managers comes like 3rd, 4th or 5th on the list after what's my contract? Are we likely to be in the Champions League? Are we fighting for trophies?
Let's be honest, players are normally at clubs longer than managers.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So if you sign just for the manager, you end up being one of those guys that every time the manager moves, you go, I want to go with you.
Branchar and Harry Redknapp.
Jermaine Defoe was another one, right? There's a few.
Yeah.
The thing with the players is the fact that if you're a top tier player, you know you're going to be playing Champions League, you know you're going to be earning top dollar, and you know you're going to be starting. Then you start looking at those are givens. I don't think those are things that are decision makers. Those are givens that you're top player in top leagues, you're going to be starting, you're going to be top dollar, and you're going to be in the Champions League. After that comes, does this manager play the way I want to play? Is he a progressive player because I like attacking, or is he a super defensive player? Do I want to play for it? Then it comes to, has this guy won it? Who else is looking for me? Who's won what? Right? Okay, we've got Pep there, we've got Klopp there, we've got Zidane there. We've got these guys who have won stuff. Who's won what? I would rather play for a manager who's winning stuff than a Frank Lampard or an Ollie.
If you're then somebody like Sancho, you're thinking, I'll get a game there because this guy plays youth.
But I'm talking about
there's a flip side.
Guaranteed a game, top dollar in Champions League.
Sancho,
that is the bracket that the top players are in. And in that bracket, you get top managers that attract these top players. And then you look at Ollie, Arteta and Frank. They're up against Pep, Klopp in Britain, and then they're up against people in Spain that have won stuff. There's not too many people in Spain that are attracting these players that are youth team coaches now managing the big teams.
Apart from Pep and Zidane, who've been the two most successful ones in recent time. You know what I mean?
As well. That's right.
Money as well. So actually, I'd say that all the successful clubs have used that exact model you're arguing against, Ali.
Yeah.
Which is...
I mean, all right, Liverpool brought in Klopp to win things, but it took him 3 or 4 years from where we were at in 8th or 9th to build through to that. On top of that, I think Klopp, to be honest, with Liverpool is kind of like the perfect match. Like I'd say Liverpool were very much like Dortmund are in Germany anyway,
like
in terms of
big crowds,
connection with the fans and all that sort of stuff. Like,
it feels authentic. Like Ferguson's not from Manchester.
Anfield being what?
No, I'm going to say it feels really authentic as a connection. Like you felt that with Ferguson coming down from Aberdeen to United. He wasn't from Manchester, but he was so Manchester United. Like you feel that about Klopp and Liverpool. There's certain Wenger and Arsenal. As for me, that's one of the ultimates that there's been. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. It's like, but were any of these guys the top manager in there? Klopp probably was one of the guys rated as one of the top at his point. I don't think Wenger came from Japan.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that you've got to be a top to get top. I say you've got to have earned your stripes. You've got to have done something. Like take a club that's 10th and make them top 6. Take a club fighting relegation, save them. Bring a club through a promotion. Do something. Like what I'm saying, I'm not saying you've got to be the finished article to get these jobs. I'm saying that show some promise. Like show me something.
But if you're the club and you feel like you're bringing someone through, can you not feel like you're building someone towards that? For like I said, the Liverpool example, Liverpool's most successful period in their history was built on doing exactly that. The boot room, the kind of succession model. So how did that happen then if these guys, should these guys all go in that to manage somewhere else first?
For me, the comparisons are maybe Pep, Zidane and Simeone. Those only because they're playing now and they're playing the way we play football now. And the game has changed over the last 10 years, let alone the last 30 years. So I understand that. I understand the Pep, the Zidane and the Simeone. I would love to be proven wrong that someone like a Frank Lampard can go to Chelsea, can win the league, win the Champions League, and give the fans what they want, because they're serial winners. They've won something for the last 10 years. Every year they've won something. And then they've got a transfer ban. They bring in Frank. Would he have come if there wasn't a ban? Would Arteta, would someone else have gone to Arsenal if they had money to spend?
Chelsea is a bit of a different one because their model has been that, like, they have been the ultimate of that culture. So it is a big change for them. But I feel with them, like, show me another club that's been able to make that Chelsea model work.
Nah, no one. But yeah,
So,
that's a model.
City's kind of done it, I suppose, as well.
Yeah, but even then, they built their whole infrastructure for Pep. Like, they literally brought the director for the whole thing was designed to go, we want Pep, so we're going to bring in his people one by one.
Well, the Mancini and Pellegrini as well, both. Did they not win leagues there as well? Or?
Yeah, and I think with Pellegrini, it's because he decided no matter what he did there at that point, they decided if they could get Pep, that's who they wanted, because they were trying to get a manager for the next 10 years. So they were still trying to build for long term. They just chosen Pep to do it. They had all Barcelona's people had come in to set that up, whereas Chelsea literally do we will sack the manager every couple of years. They're the only. The only thing I can think of anything like it is the Real Madrid model. Yeah, Zidane managed to buck the trend, who was, again, this guy that counters the argument. So it's a bit of a mad one for me. I don't think there is a definitive... I'm not saying you're wrong that you shouldn't go for a big... I'm saying that you shouldn't just automatically do that. You should be exposed courses. And I feel like it's what you need, it's what your club needs at that point. It's what them set of players need at that point. It's what your 5 and your 10-year plan looks like. If your 5 and a 10-year plan is to have 3 different managers, crack on. If you're trying to have someone in that you want there for 5-10 years, well, you're probably not going to get that from someone who has no affiliation to the club. Like, why would they? So then you're thinking, well, can they go manage somewhere else first and come back? But they might not come back. That's the thing. Like, so it's a risky.
Ali, what would you do, or what? Yeah, if you were Liverpool's board after Klopp leaves, what would you do?
I would look at someone within the Premier League. No, actually, Liverpool. If Klopp leaves, it's really hard to think about Liverpool after Klopp because you don't know what else he can achieve yet. So it depends on how much he achieves.